Warning: the following episode contains elements of horror that may be unsuitable for listeners under the age of 13. Listener discretion is advised. Hello. We've been expecting you. I'm Brianna, and welcome to Beyond the Bazaar's 13 Nights of Frights. From October 19th through October 31st, Halloween night, we will be sharing with you some of our favorite hand-picked urban legends, lore, stories, and more that we love to talk about during this special time of year. So take a seat, make yourself comfortable for these 13 nights of terror. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Bazaar. I'm Brianna, and I'm glad to have you guys back for another episode of our 13 Nights of Frights. We are already on episode 6, and it's kind of unbelievable how fast the week's going by. But we're on episode 6 already, and I can't wait to get into tonight's topic with you guys. Yesterday we talked about and shared the urban legend of the ghost bus of Beijing, which, just to recap, is a tale about taking the kind of cautions against taking the last bus, avoiding taking the last bus of the night if you can, because it's believed that the last bus is for transferring spirits. And I thought that was very interesting, and also it's from a country that's not native to me. I'm from the United States, so I love reading and learning about things from different countries. And as I said on yesterday's episode, in the last episode, I want to get more into being able to share those with you guys, because not everyone, as I previously stated, is open or know how to go about finding urban legends, lore, ghost stories from other places. So I want to be able to share those with you guys as much as possible. But for this episode, I did kind of want to take a step back from that, because I found an urban legend, or I should say I remembered an urban legend that is from my native country of America, but it's really interesting and gruesome and creepy, and it's just perfect to share for our 13 Nights of Frights. And that is the legend of Skinned Tom. So the legend of Skinned Tom comes from rural Tennessee. It's a state in the United States. Skinned Tom is a scary urban legend about a man named Tom, obviously, who unfortunately met a grisly end. The ghost of Skinned Tom is said to haunt lovers' lanes throughout the southern region of the United States. There's actually a rhyme that's associated with the legend of Skinned Tom, and it goes like, "Have you seen the ghost of Skinned Tom? Bloody red bones with the skin all gone. Oh, 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 oh. Wouldn't he be chilly with no skin on?" In rural Tennessee, there lived a young man named Tom. He was very handsome, charming, witty, athletic. Every woman's dream. More than that, Tom had a keen eye for the ladies, and there were very few that could resist his charm and charisma. Every girl in town eventually fell for Tom's good looks, but he could never be satisfied. As soon as he had romanced and successfully wooed one girl, he would break up with her and move on to the next. Before long, Tom had dated almost every single girl in the area. So eventually, in search of new romances, new flings, Tom moved on and began driving to the next town over to meet more women. Soon after getting there, he came across a beautiful young lady named Eleanor. She had long blonde hair, bright blue eyes, and a curvaceous figure. Tom immediately found himself smitten with Eleanor and then began dating. But there was just one problem with this. Eleanor was already married. Tom knew that Eleanor was married, but he didn't let that deter him. In fact, he found sneaking around and having an affair with a married woman exciting. The pair will often meet late at night at the local lover's lane and make out in Tom's car. Tom and Eleanor didn't downplay their romance. And before too long, as often in small towns, the folks in town began to gossip about them. Eventually, the gossip got back to her husband, and he found himself driven insane with jealousy. He then vowed to get revenge on them both. Eleanor's husband told his wife that he was going out of town for the weekend. He then hid in the woods behind their house. And just as he figured, that evening, Tom showed up to take Eleanor out. The husband then followed them up to the lover's lane. When Tom and Eleanor were locked in a passionate embrace, they heard the car door open. Standing there was Eleanor's husband. His face was twisted in an evil, mischievous grin. And in his hand, he held a hunting knife. Tom, scared out of his mind, began begging for his life. He swore up and down that he didn't know that Eleanor was a married woman. But of course, Eleanor's husband did not believe him. He grabbed Tom by the ankles and dragged him out of the car, still wearing the evil grin upon his face. Tom continued to beg, "Please don't kill me." The husband looked at him. "Oh no, I'm not going to kill you," he said. "I have something far worse in mind." With that, the husband dragged Tom off into the darkness. Eleanor, left behind, cowering in the car, cannot see what was going on outside, but she could hear. She was forced to listen to Tom's blood-curdling screams as they pierced through the night. Finally, Eleanor's husband emerged from the darkness, his clothes drenched in blood. Without a single word to Eleanor, he climbed into the car and drove to the local police station and turned himself in. The next morning, the police drove up to the crime scene and made the most horrifying discovery. Hanging from the branches of a tree was a pile of human skin. Shortly after that, they realized that the husband hadn't killed Tom. He had skinned him. In fact, the man, so driven by jealousy, had skinned Tom so carefully that Tom was still alive by the end of the ordeal. The husband then left Tom's body for dead. The police searched throughout the area, but Tom was nowhere to be seen, and they could find no trace of the weapon, the hunting knife, either. This is where the urban legend of Skin Tom's comes from. They say that Tom still lurks around the Lover's Lane, waiting to catch a cheating couple and teach them the same lesson he learned that fateful night. Once a witty, handsome young man is now just a bloody skeleton, stalking the woods, the alleys, with the same hunting knife clenched in his fingers. All the teenagers in Tennessee are warned by their parents. Don't go to Lover's Lane if you don't want to be Skin Tom's next victim. Now, like I said, I think this is not my favorite, but it was very interesting. I remember the first thing when I had heard it initially, the first thing that came to mind was that this dude Tom, he's walking around, just doing what, I'm not gonna say doing what young guys do, because not all young guys are like that, so I don't want to put that out there, but pretty much is doing what typical guys do, date around, whatever, but leaving a series of broken hearts in the mists or along the way, until of course he finds this one girl where he wants to focus his attention, and how fate is, this one girl is not available to him, but he doesn't allow that to stop him from making her his, because he's been used to pretty much getting any girl he wants. So if she's married, okay, I don't care. That probably made him like have an ego boost, the fact that he's this good looking, I can take her away from her husband, like I can take a woman if I want to, type of thing. But yes, that's probably like an ego stroke for him. So when he was found out by the husband, the first thing he says is, please don't kill me. So even though he said he didn't know Eleanor was married, the fact that that was his first reaction kind of let the husband know, if he didn't already know, that Tom knew. He knew at that moment, the fact that he already knew. Tom's reaction, if he wanted to get away with it, I probably shouldn't say this, but if he wanted to get away with it, he should have been like, who is this? I'd be like, Eleanor, what was this? Anyway, I don't condone cheating, but back to my thoughts on the urban legend. When her husband got there and he saw Tom with Eleanor, now the first natural reaction, of course, there's going to be a fight that's going to ensue. So when I had heard it, I was like, well, that's pretty morbid for you to skin someone alive. And I guess cheating is a bad thing, and yes, it's hurtful to find out that your wife is cheating, but to skin someone alive, it's a big, gruesome, and really morbid to be able to sit there and actually do that to someone. But we don't know what state of mind the husband was in. I don't know, but I just think that's pretty much a bit too much there. And the fact that, per the urban legend, that Skin Tom's body wasn't there when the cops got there. Now, the cops who went to the scene to investigate must have some really strong stomachs, because to see like piles of skin just draped over branches, as the legend states, that just would have been too much for me. That would have been a day I would have turned in my badge, because I wouldn't have been able to even deal with that. But I'm pretty sure cops see weird, gruesome things all the time. That would have been enough for me. And to know that actually someone was actually capable, someone locally in our town was capable of actually skinning someone, it's crazy. But I can see why the stories has gained so much traction, and I think a lot of it probably comes from just parents, especially like at the end where it says parents use the legend of Skin Tom to kind of prohibit kids from going up to local lovers' lanes, making out, things of that nature. It kind of uses as a preventative thing, like you don't want to be Skin Tom's next victim. You don't want Skin Tom to get you. Kind of like, how parents do with the boogeyman, just try to whip their kids into shape and have them behave. But I'm pretty sure there's other ways they can do that besides having a gruesome tale, but I am glad that it exists because I was able to share it with you guys. And another thing I found about this legend that it has in common with a lot of other legends is the lover's lane theme. Like any urban legend that has some type of lover's lane involved in it is never good. And I think that goes back to a fixation that hooking up, making out, having sex or whatever is considered like a bad thing. You notice even in scary movies, as soon as someone starts having sex, they're about to die. Like, I mean, I'm at the point where I'm like, I don't know if you guys have seen the meme, but I'm that Leonardo DiCaprio meme where I'm pointing at the TV saying they're about to die because you just know at that point, like you just know something's gonna happen, and I don't know. I guess it just comes from that old trope where a long time ago, like back in the 60s, 70s. I wish I knew where when Skin Tom had originated, probably back in that time from the elements that it has in it, the lover's lane, the parents warning against it. I think it probably originated around that time where it was kind of taboo to talk about or to even be open sexually, talk about things like that. Or whereas more so now, it's more you can talk about it openly. It's not that big of a deal. But back then, it's just kind of considered like, no, this is bad. This is bad. Bad things happen to you, and all of that. So it had kids thinking, oh, if I do this, if I go to Lover's Lane and make out in my car, I'm going to get stabbed. The hook man's going to get me, all this stuff. So it's just so much stuff that's centered around that I never quite understood. I mean, I can understand for that time because parents just kind of wanted their kids to behave and not partake in premarital sexual activity. But at the same time, I just think it's a bit extreme to tell, to have murder be the consequence of that. But at the same time, I'm kind of glad because, like I said before, we have all these awesome legends to be able to share just from those parental concerns. So thank you guys. And speaking of urban legends, we do have another legend for you guys for our 13 Nights of Frights. We have another legend for you guys tomorrow. We're going to be sharing the Native American urban legend of the Wendigo, a monster in which, depending on who you ask, devours mankind. Tune in tomorrow for another episode of Beyond the Bizarre in our 13 Nights of Frights special. Until then, have a good night, and as always, stay bizarre.